Good evening, researcher. If you are listening to this, that means you've been selected to take part in the SCP Foundation's Hypnopedia research program. If you are not one of the researchers selected for this sleep teaching program, it is a violation of the Foundation's policy to continue further, and this access has been submitted to the Ethics Committee and no fewer than 2 Level 3 operatives in your area. If, however, you are indeed authorized for this program, welcome, and sweet dream. Now, let us begin with the object in question. SCP-2188. Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. Knowledge of SCP-2188 is available to all personnel aware of amnestics. Personnel seeking authorization to utilize SCP-2188 must meet a set of criteria for certification. These criteria are successful completion of a knowledge test regarding the process of SCP-2188, scoring above 80%. Successful completion of a knowledge test regarding how to avoid misusage of SCP-2188, scoring above 80%. Having witnessed SCP-2188 being performed on at least 10 separate occasions. Possessing an advanced anesthesiology degree, anesthesiology being the study of and authorization to use amnestics. Approval of certification from the Anesthesiological Medical Committee, and at least one successful mock ACO procedure performed on a mannequin, witnessed by an advanced anesthesiologist. Personnel awaiting certification may request to perform a practice ACO procedure. These procedures may occur when an advanced anesthesiologist is present. Said procedures may occur on D-Class personnel who have suffered brain death, been comatose for a period longer than 20 days, been observed as catatonic, near completely catatonic for more than 30 days, or been diagnosed at one point with antisocial personality disorder. Personnel who improperly perform an ACO procedure are to be judged on a case-by-case basis by an anesthesiological medical committee, with a special ethics committee liaison. If found guilty of misconduct, personnel are to be stripped of their certification and compelled to retake the certification procedure. A person may only have certification stripped a maximum of 3 times prior to being permanently barred from certification. ACO procedures may only be carried out at Foundation facilities with proper equipment available. There must be a minimum 12-hour notice prior to commencement. Description: SCP-2188 is a medical procedure known as anesthesiologic conceptual overload, one of the 6 ethically approved anesthetization methods. SCP-2188 serves 2 purposes as a procedure, both to coerce and destroy concepts within a person's mind. SCP-2188 is the most precise known method of amnesticization. Wherein traditional amnesticization methods rely on the exterior isolation of select concepts, SCP-2188 works via introducing an abundance of concepts into the brain during a state of induced mental paralysis. Mental paralysis is an induced state in which a person temporarily suffers complete paraplegia, extreme aphantasia, and bowel incontinence. The subsequent autocognitive response within a person's brain will trigger autoconceptual destruction, causing the intrinsic destruction of concepts rather than extrinsic. Intrinsic destruction poses a much lower risk of incidentally destroying unintended concepts when performed correctly than extrinsic procedures. Research on a modified version of the anesthesiologic conceptual overload procedure, known as long-term anesthesiologic destruction, is ongoing. Long-term anesthesiologic destruction is a state reliant on the development of permanent conceptual implants. These are concepts present within a person's mind that were not organically developed. within a subject to alter their limbic system. The limbic system is the interconnected brain structures within which regulate emotion, memory, thought, and motivation. In this state, persons will automatically enter autoconceptual destruction upon relearning select concepts which have previously been destroyed. The Ethics Committee is currently slated to vote on ethically approving the long-term anesthesiologic destruction procedure on 06 November 2026. If approved, it would be the first procedure that would permanently prevent a person from relearning destroyed concepts. Discovery. SCP-2188 was discovered on 5 November 1954 during a standard intravenous anesthetization procedure. During the procedure, an accompanying researcher placed a recording of themselves stating random words near the subject. The process caused the subject to enter a rudimentary state of anesthesiological conceptual overload, and they expired during the procedure after the concept of respiration was permanently removed from their procedural memory. Starting January 2, 1956, further development saw anesthesiological conceptual overload procedures being used as a humane termination tool for D-Class personnel. The majority of research regarding SCP-2188 was conducted during this period. Following an Ethics Committee ban on termination via ACO, the procedure fell out of usage. The procedure would only begin seeing usage again following the application of a major breakthrough discovered while working on SCP-61. Subsequent analysis by the Ethics Committee ruled it to be ethical to be used as an anesthetization tool on April 19, 2004, at which point it was designated SCP-2188. Procedure. Anesthesiological conceptual overload procedures must be performed in a designated Bernheim room. Bernheim rooms must be made with specially designed walls that are at least 1 meter thick, with alternating 10 centimeter thick layers of steel and concrete. Inside the room, walls must be lined with fiberglass wedges. The entrance must consist of a double-door airlock, each made of at least 30 centimeter thick steel. Additionally, a fiberglass curtain should be available inside the room, which can be lowered to complete an airtight seal. Only lights, medical equipment, and a noiseless air circulation unit are permitted inside of the room during procedures. The temperature inside the room must be maintained at exactly 13 degrees Celsius. Procedural document. Anesthesiological conceptual overload. Preparation. Anesthesiologists are to gather requisite materials. Should preparation begin within 48 hours of when a procedure is to be scheduled, the target must be administered a stomach irritant and laxative to reduce vomiting and excretion. Checks on the digestive tract of the target must occur at least 4 hours before the procedure onset. Target may instead go on a restrictive diet with laxatives if the procedure is given adequate notice. Ear cavities, nasal cavities, mouth, and throat must be flushed and cleaned 30 minutes in advance of onset. All hair on the target's head will be shaved. Pre-administration. A hypnotic will be administered to the target to induce sleep, followed by the subsequent injection of a stimulant upon the target entering the REM phase of sleep. The stimulant will work to duly awaken the target and prevent the loss of consciousness during the procedure. After the stimulant is applied, the target must be relocated to the available Bernheim room and stripped of all clothing and piercings. Multiple straps are required to be applied to the target, including arm, leg, waist, and head straps. Noise-canceling headphones, nasal plugs, and strobe goggles will be attached to the target, as well as a catheter and fecal bag. Unique sensory manipulation. Mimetic phrases will be sent through the headphones in random intervals, and the strobe goggles will begin flashing a Navarazine mimetic sequence into the target's eyes. Research ongoing to discover a sequence which does not trigger an epileptic seizure. Targets may behave erratically during this phase. As a safety protocol, anesthesiologists may not physically contact the target until the phase ends. When the target enters a state of induced mental paralysis, phase ends, and an anti-exploratory agent will be administered to lock the target in state. Administration. Intravenous administration of amnestics will begin. Select cortexes may experience non-epileptic seizures triggering unconscious physical reactions. Further straps must be applied to the target if a pattern of physical reactions manifests. After amnestic administration concludes, the strobe goggles and nasal plugs will be removed. Ceiling lights must be disabled at this point, and amnesiologic personnel must switch to using headlamps for the remainder of the procedure. A nasal canal will be attached to enable respiration. Personnel must begin administration of an eye lubricant every 5 minutes at this time. A paralyzing agent will be administered to the throat of the target to prevent unconscious vocalizations from occurring. These vocalizations are typically loud and pose a risk of permanent conceptual damage to the target if enabled. The headphones will now begin playing pro-conceptual phrases into the target's ears. Thought scan navigation. Personnel will attach a thought scan transcription device to the target. Intermittent pro-conceptual phrases will be played, enabling anesthesiologists to search through present concepts within the target's brain. During this period, concepts will be forced to the top of the target's brain and transcribed to the device. Following the procedure, any undestroyed concepts and memories within the target will become eidetic. Targets will be able to accurately recall any detail regarding the concept or memory without intrusive thought. Navigation will end after the anesthesiologists have located and transcribed all conceptual information desired from the target. Overload. The frequency of pro-conceptual phrases being played will increase from intermittent to constant. Phrases must continue until the target reaches a state of conceptual overload, which can take from 40 minutes to 8 hours. Brain activity within the amygdala, the part of the limbic system which regulates aggression, anxiety, and fear, will spike. The fecal and catheter bags must be replaced every 10 minutes during this period. The target phase will end upon the detection that the conceptual implants have developed within the target. Destruction. All pro-conceptual phrases being played will cease. The target will be held in their current state for 25 minutes to ensure that the conceptual implants will not begin early degradation. If degradation occurs, the target will repeat the overload phase. If early degradation does not occur, the target will be subjected to transcranial magnetic stimulation, a technique in which a magnetic field is utilized to induce an electric current within the brain, modulating neural activity. This will be used to initiate autoconceptual destruction. Secondary thought scan navigation. The thought scan navigation transcription device will be reconnected to the target. Anesthesiologists will search the target's brain for concepts which were intended to be destroyed. If any intended concepts were not destroyed, the destruction process is repeated. Repeated initiations of the autoconceptual destruction may cause minor or major conceptual damage across the entirety of a target. An ethics committee report found that the risk of an occurrence was minor and suggested the procedure not be altered to factor for it. Conclusion. If all concepts have been destroyed, amnestic administration will cease. Anesthetics are administered to the target at this point. The headphones will remain on the target until it is determined that they have recovered from the procedure to a thorough extent. The catheter and the fecal bag must remain attached. Anesthesiologists are permitted to leave the Bernheim room at this point, but must document the target state every 10 minutes. Aftercare. The catheter and the fecal bags will be removed at this time. 2 personnel must accompany the target and give them a bath. The personnel must also feed the target and direct them to the facility medical wing to rest. Upon being brought to the medical wing, the fecal bag and catheter must be reattached. Target will be granted a recovery time of 48 hours to allow for all agents administered to naturally dissipate. 1 week following the conclusion of an SCP-2188 procedure, the head anesthesiologist who conducted the procedure is to follow up with the target. Symptoms the target is experiencing as a result of the procedure are to be documented. Common symptoms are frequent headaches, temporary hearing loss, temporary prosopagnosia, which is the inability to recognize faces, temporary dysphagia, which is the inability to swallow, partial or complete asomatognosia, which is the inability to feel, recognize, or be conscious of bodily parts, alien hand syndrome, which is the periodic unconscious movement, inability to control, or difficulty of perceiving the movement of the hand, repeated bouts of syncope, loss of consciousness, or frequent hyposthesia, reduced or complete loss of sense of touch or sensation. All of these symptoms will typically disappear within 2 to 5 weeks following the procedure, though rarely may become permanent. Symptoms are more likely to become permanent following repeat applications of the procedure. The Ethics Committee is slated to vote on a proposal to decrease the requirements for ACO certification on January 30th, 2026, in response to an increased demand for ACO procedures in recent years. The Ethics Committee did approve a proposal regarding an increase in funding for advanced anesthesiology degrees on November 29th, 2024. That will conclude today's lesson. Sweet dreams.